Who knew that a gigantic vegetarian bear, played by Mr. Schneebly, or is it Schneebley,
You know what? Why don't you all just call me Mr. S?
could end up being the driving force behind an epic kung fu quadrilogy?
What?
That's right, today we're gonna be breaking down the life of everyone's favorite kick-ass panda, Po. Before we get started, make sure you like the video and subscribe for more like it. Alright, let's get into it. Early years. Po was born as Lotus in a secluded farming village inhabited exclusively by pandas. Lotus had a joyful upbringing with his biological father, Li Shan, and his mother, until their village was attacked by the evil power-seeking peacock Shen, who aimed to thwart a prophecy by eliminating any potential threats to his future reign. In a desperate attempt to protect her child, Lotus's mother concealed him in a crate of radishes. They shared an emotional farewell before she was tragically killed by Shen and his wolf army. The crate containing Lotus was eventually transported to the Valley of Peace, where a noodle shop owner, Mr. Ping, discovered the baby panda, who had eaten the radishes. Initially hesitant to take him in, Mr. Ping, upon realizing that no one was searching for him, ultimately adopted him, naming him Xiao Po and raising him as his own son. Since then, Po has been joyfully raised in the noodle shop, learning everything he knew about noodle making from his adoptive father. Until the events of the second film, Po never asked Mr. Ping if he was adopted, as their bond was filled with deep mutual love and respect. Despite this, Po harbored doubts about their relationship. Secrets of the Scroll. As Po entered his teenage years, he struggled with a lack of focus and his father's cooking skills. This led to Master Shifu getting food poisoning after Po prepared a meal for the Jade Palace while his father was away on business. Following this incident, Po began considering alternative career paths, such as cleaner, comedian, dancer, or doctor, and listed them on a scroll. The scroll accidentally ended up in the hands of Tigress, who mistook it for a list created by Shifu of 4 warriors she was to gather to face the villainous boar. Consequently, she recruited Crane, Monkey, Viper, and Mantis, but they were quickly dismissed by Shifu, who also ordered the evacuation of the valley. During this time, Po confessed to his father that he caused Shifu's illness. His father, seeing this as good publicity, sent Po to gather ingredients for meals to be served to the fleeing villagers. From a hilltop his father had specified, Po watched as the future Furious 5 battled boar and quickly realized what he wanted to do with his life: practice kung fu. He later made a set of Furious 5 action figures, which he treasured for years, only for his father to give them away to a customer. Po attempted to recover them, but after seeing the youngster developing his own love for kung fu, he felt that they had come to the right place. It appears that he later created a new set. Kung Fu Panda. Now a young adult, Po is an idealistic dreamer with aspirations of becoming a kung fu legend alongside his heroes, the Furious 5. His love for kung fu has led him to develop an encyclopedic knowledge of everything related to it. However, this knowledge was acquired only as a fan, as Po's soft, large, and untrained body made such a goal seem unrealistic to him and everyone around him. Consequently, he kept his dreams a secret, even from his father, Mr. Ping. Instead, he resigned himself to the idea that his future would be running the family's noodle shop. It was seemingly by mistake that Po was chosen to become the Dragon Warrior. Po was ecstatic when he heard about a tournament being held to determine which of the Furious 5 would be chosen as the Dragon Warrior. Abandoning his task of selling noodles, he rushed to see the tournament but couldn't make it in time as the gates closed on him, shutting him out. After many failed attempts to get inside, Po's final idea was to strap fireworks to a chair and light them to lift him up and into the arena. When his plan initially failed, Po was about to give up and return to work with his father. However, the fireworks suddenly ignited, shooting him into the sky and flying over the arena. Po plummeted to the ground, landing just before Oogway's claw, which, when he regained consciousness, was pointed directly at him. Oogway interpreted this as a sign that the universe had brought them the Dragon Warrior. Everyone, including Po, was surprised by this turn of events. The valley celebrated, and Po was carried to the Jade Palace, where he was met by Shifu, who was very openly hostile and critical, especially regarding Po's physique. Shifu then took Po to the training hall, hoping that after seeing the level of training required, the panda would quit. In front of the Furious 5, Po's inexperience led him to being injured and humiliated. On their way to the student barracks, Po overheard the 5 joking about his incompetence. Later, Tigress even told him directly that he was a disgrace to Kung Fu, and that if he truly respected Kung Fu and what the Furious 5 represent, he should leave. Po, disheartened by his hero's comments, retreated to the Peach Tree of Heavenly Wisdom. There, Oogway found him and listened as Po expressed his doubts about ever becoming a Kung Fu warrior. Oogway advised Po to focus on the present opportunity rather than worrying about the past or the future. The next morning, when Po was not found in his room, everyone assumed he had left, only to discover that he was already training in the courtyard. Shifu, still intent on discouraging Po, pushed him hard. Po sparred with the 5, excluding Tigris, and was defeated each time, yet he remained enthusiastic. Growing impatient, Shifu sparred with Po himself, resulting in Po being thrown down the palace stairs. Despite this, Po's determination and resilience impressed some of the 5. Later that night, Mantis and Viper were the first to reach out to him. During an acupuncture session, the 3 discussed Shifu's harsh demeanor. Overhearing their conversation, Tigris shared Shifu's backstory, revealing how he had raised Tai Lung as a son, only to be heartbroken by Tai Lung's betrayal. As Po and the 5 continued to bond over noodle soup that Po prepared, Tigris remained aloof. However, when Po lightened the mood with a Shifu impersonation, Shifu himself unexpectedly appeared. He announces that Tai Lung had broken out of the Chorgam prison and that it's Po's destiny to defeat him, also relaying that Oogway had passed away. Startled and frightened, Po runs off but is stopped by Shifu, who, despite his prior disapproval, declares that Po is the Dragon Warrior. Po confronts Shifu, challenging his belief that Shifu never had faith in him and had been trying to make him quit. Shifu demands to know why Po hadn't left despite knowing Shifu's intentions, prompting Po to admit he'd been deeply hurt but chose to stay because he believed Shifu could inspire change in him. Po candidly asks Shifu how he planned to transform him into a warrior capable of defeating Tai Lung, to which Shifu honestly confesses he does not know. Discouraged, Po seeks solace in food once more, ransacking the kitchen in the barracks, venting his frustration by punching through cupboards and drawers, even performing a perfect split in his agitation. Witnessing this, Shifu finally grasps the unique nature of Po's approach compared to the 5, recognizing an opportunity to harness what others see as weakness and using it as a teaching tool to motivate and train Po. Shifu leads Po through the Wudang Mountains to the Pool of Sacred Tears, where Oogway first created Kung Fu. There, Shifu begins intensive training sessions with Po, using food as a motivating factor to develop his skills and strength. As a final test, Po is challenged to steal a dumpling from Shifu. Eventually, Po succeeds in besting Shifu, and they bow to each other in mutual respect. Meanwhile, the Furious 5, under Tigris's leadership, had ventured out to confront Tai Lung on their own. Despite their valiant efforts, Tai Lung overpowers them with a nerve attack. Crane returns with the injured 5 to relay the grim news to Po. Shifu reassures Po that with the Dragon Scroll they can still defeat Tai Lung. However, when Po finally opens the scroll, everyone is stunned to find it is simply a golden reflective surface with nothing written on it. This revelation leads Po to believe that perhaps Oogway made a mistake in choosing him as the Dragon Warrior. With no legendary powers to rely on, Shifu orders the Furious 5 to evacuate the valley, intending to confront Tai Lung himself to buy them time. Reluctantly, they obey, and Po joins the others in leaving. The 5 divide their efforts to escort villagers to safety, while Po returns to his father's noodle shop to help pack up. Feeling crushed that his dream of becoming the Dragon Warrior was seemingly dashed, Po lags behind. In an attempt to lift his son's spirits, Mr. Ping reveals the truth. The secret ingredient in their famous noodle soup was actually nothing. By simply believing it to be special, it became special on its own. Astounded, Po opened the Dragon Scroll only to find his own reflection staring back at him. Mr. Ping's earlier words suddenly clicked, and Po finally grasped the true meaning of the Dragon Scroll, the secret to limitless power. Filled with newfound understanding, Po hurried back to the Jade Palace and arrived just in time to rescue Shifu. Confronting Tai Lung, Po boldly declared himself the genuine Dragon Warrior. Tai Lung scoffed at the claim, prompting Po to reveal he possessed the Dragon Scroll. This sparked a fierce struggle between Po and Tai Lung for control of the scroll, leading to a sprawling battle that spilled out into the valley. Both fighters relentlessly pursued the Dragon Scroll as it tumbled from place to place, their clash intensifying with each moment. Physically outmatched by Tai Lung's superior strength, speed, and agility, Po relied on his own resilience and the lessons learned from his personal trials. Despite Tai Lung's formidable abilities, Po managed to hold his ground. However, Tai Lung eventually landed a powerful kick that sent the Dragon Warrior crashing into the ground, creating a deep crater upon impact. Momentarily stunned and defeated, Po could only watch as Tai Lung seized the Dragon Scroll and opened it, only to find it blank. In a pivotal moment, Po explained to Tai Lung the scroll's true message, that believing in oneself is what makes it special. Enraged by this revelation, Tai Lung angrily discarded the scroll and attempted his deadly nerve attack on Po. To everyone's surprise, the attack had no effect on him, as his large physique somehow rendered him immune to Tai Lung's technique. In their climactic battle, Po consistently outsmarted and outmaneuvered Tai Lung, adapting his own improvised style in the process. Tai Lung's growing frustration at Po's resilience and ingenuity only fueled his anger further. Despite Tai Lung's physical prowess, Po's endurance and determination proved to be a formidable match. Eventually, Po successfully executed the Wuxi fingerhold on Tai Lung, unleashing a massive golden shockwave that reverberated throughout the Valley of Peace and beyond. Upon their return, the Furious 5 and the villagers rejoiced to see Po victorious over Tai Lung, acknowledging him as the true Dragon Warrior with cheers and bows. Po, though modestly pleased by their acceptance, quickly remembered Shifu's injuries. He hurried back to the palace and found Shifu still wounded, informing him of his triumph over Tai Lung. Shifu weakly thanked Po for bringing peace to both the valley and to him. Po then sat beside Shifu for a few moments before asking if he wanted to grab something to eat. Later, they shared a meal of dumplings by the Peach Tree of Heavenly Wisdom, overlooking a new day dawning in the Valley of Peace. Secrets of the Furious Five. After Shifu assigned Po the task of teaching a class of energetic rabbit children, he warned Po it might be his toughest challenge yet, and left him to manage the class alone. Po initially struggled to control the lively group, but eventually settled them down. He engaged them by recounting stories of how each member of the Furious Five learned the principles of Kung Fu. When Shifu returned to assess Po's progress, he feared Po might have taught the children that Kung Fu was solely about combat. However, to his surprise, the children enthusiastically shared what they had learned: patience, courage, discipline, compassion, and confidence. Impressed by Po's teaching, Shifu acknowledged his success and allowed him to continue teaching the class. Kung Fu Panda Holiday. It was the Winter Festival, and Master Shifu informed Po at the noodle shop that he was to host the Winter Feast at the Jade Palace. Po excitedly shared the news with the Furious Five, who offered their help in preparing for the formal dinner. However, Po, eager to prove himself, insisted that he could handle everything on his own. As preparations for the feast intensified, Po became overwhelmed by the numerous tasks and felt the absence of his father, who couldn't attend the event. In a moment of stress, Po accidentally offended a rabbit chef named Wo Hop with a dismissive gesture, worsening his mood. Despite initially dismissing the other chef's dishes harshly, Po eventually offered the position and the prestigious golden ladle to his father, hoping they could spend the holiday together. However, Mr. Ping declined the offer, feeling obligated to remain at the restaurant and not disappoint his customers. When Po expressed his disappointment about not being able to celebrate the holiday at home, Mr. Ping reluctantly urged him to fulfill his duty at the palace feast, leaving Po burdened with guilt. After the challenging events in the palace kitchen, where Po faced Wo Hop's attempts to restore his honor through a deadly challenge, several disasters unfolded, including a fire and a damaged ice dragon sculpture. Feeling defeated and believing he had let everyone down, Po sank into despair. Wo Hop's remark about Kung Fu not solving everything struck a chord with Po, prompting him to call upon the help of the Furious Five and Wo Hop to salvage the preparations for the Winter Feast. With their combined efforts, they managed to pull everything together just in time. While attending to a last-minute detail, Po glanced at the village, adorned with colorful lanterns, families joyously celebrating their own feasts, which left him feeling melancholic. Later, seated with Shifu, the Furious Five, and visiting Kung Fu masters at the Jade Palace, Po received praise from Shifu for orchestrating a flawless feast. Despite the accolades, Po couldn't shake his unhappiness in the company of the esteemed Kung Fu heroes. He explained to them his own traditions of enjoying the holiday with family, friends, and neighbors, expressing his longing for that sense of community and joy. Unable to ignore his heart's pull, Po politely excused himself, much to Shifu's disappointment, and hurried back to join his father at the noodle shop. At the noodle shop, Mr. Ping was genuinely glad to see Po and apologized for making him feel guilty earlier. Po, in turn, offered to help his father with cooking. Together they prepared several bowls of holiday-themed noodle soup, delighting their customers who cheered them on. Later, to Po's surprise, the Furious Five and visiting Kung Fu masters arrived at the restaurant and joined in the celebrations. Po took the opportunity to present the golden ladle to Wo Hop, who had returned, symbolically restoring honor to him and his village. Shifu also made an appearance at the noodle shop, still harboring disappointment over what he saw as Po ruining the palace feast. However, upon witnessing the genuine happiness and camaraderie inside the shop, Shifu began to understand and appreciate Po's unconventional decision. When Po spotted Shifu, he warmly invited him to join the festivities. Initially reluctant, Shifu eventually relented, touched by Po's insistence that he was part of their family. Together with the Furious Five and the other guests, they posed for a group portrait, marking a moment of unity and reconciliation. In the end, Po's heartfelt and unorthodox actions managed to appease everyone, showcasing the power of community and family bonds and celebrating the Winter Festival. Kung Fu Panda 2. Sometime after defeating Tai Lung and earning the respect of the Furious Five, Po was living his dream as the Dragon Warrior. He enthusiastically participated in a bean bun eating competition with the Five, impressively stuffing 38 buns into his mouth and earning cheers from his friends. Encouraged by the challenge, Po accepted a dare to consume 40 buns, which he accomplished amidst more celebration, though a playful slap on the back from Crane caused him to inadvertently spit out the beans, much to everyone's amusement. Despite the festive atmosphere, Shifu reminded Po that his journey was far from over and that there was still much to learn. In the Serene Dragon Grotto, Shifu demonstrated the delicate technique of catching and guiding a water droplet without breaking it, emphasizing that mastering such a feat required inner peace. Po was captivated by the technique and Shifu's wisdom, realizing that achieving inner peace was the next crucial step in his training. However, their lesson was interrupted when Po and the Furious Five were summoned to protect Musician's village from bandits. Po assured Shifu that he would continue his pursuit of inner peace as soon as they returned from dealing with the threat. Po hurried to Musician's village, lifted into the air by crane, and raced alongside his comrades to confront the bandits. Upon arrival, they faced a pack of wolves led by Boss Wolf, who was taken aback to encounter a panda among their foes. The wolves were pillaging metal for Lord Shen, intending it for deadly purposes. Using his honed skills, Po effectively engaged the wolves in combat, demonstrating that his training had indeed paid off. Together with the Furious Five, they fought bravely to repel the invading pack. However, as the battle reached its climax, Po noticed a symbol on Boss Wolf's armor that triggered a haunting flashback of his mother's face. This unexpected memory momentarily distracted Po, allowing Boss Wolf to strike him with a hammer, knocking him down and enabling the wolf to escape. Confused and unsettled by this sudden recollection, Po abruptly left the scene, leaving his comrades and the villagers bewildered by his departure. Uncertain about the unsettling vision he experienced, Po turned to his father, Mr. Ping, for answers. He broached the subject by asking where he came from, prompting Mr. Ping to humorously deflect the question by explaining how geese gave birth, and urging Po not to inquire further about where the egg comes from. Po, however, saw through his father's evasions. During their heartfelt conversation, Mr. Ping finally disclosed the truth. Po was adopted. Mr. Ping recounted finding Po as a baby in a radish crate delivered to his restaurant. Despite initially being unsure, Mr. Ping made the decision to raise Po as his own, providing for him through his soup business and caring for him as a loving father. Po, hungry for more details, pressed Mr. Ping for further information, but his father had none to offer, leaving Po troubled by unanswered questions about his past. Attempting to console Po, Mr. Ping reminded him that while his beginnings might not have been conventional or clear, he was currently living a happy and fulfilling life with his adoptive family. Despite these reassurances, Po grappled with a lingering sense of identity and struggled to come to terms with who he truly was. Sometime later, Shifu received alarming news that Master Thundering Rhino of Gongmen City had been slain by a powerful weapon created by Lord Shen, capable of rendering Kung Fu ineffective. Po and the Furious Five were stunned by the revelation, initially struggling to believe its truth. Shifu solemnly instructed them to travel to Gongmen City, destroy the weapon, and confront Shen. Po expressed his apprehension about facing a weapon that could nullify Kung Fu itself, questioning how they could possibly combat such a threat. In response, Shifu reminded Po that anything was achievable with inner peace. Po, visibly encouraged by Shifu's words, smiled with determination and set off with the Furious Five on their mission to Gongmen City. Before Po and the Furious Five could depart, they were intercepted by Mr. Ping, who presented Po with a backpack filled with comforting items for the journey. As they shared a poignant moment, Mr. Ping reminisced about Po's childhood, evoking both warmth and deeper contemplation in Po about his origins and sense of belonging. Po expressed his determination to fulfill his responsibility of saving Kung Fu, emphasizing that his identity seemed intertwined with this mission. Mr. Ping, concerned for Po's safety, voiced his wish for Po to reconsider going on such a perilous quest. In response, Po asserted that he had to go, driven by his duty to protect Kung Fu from Shen's threat. When Mr. Ping assured Po that he would always be his son, regardless of his martial arts prowess, Po struggled to reciprocate the sentiment. He bid his father a heartfelt goodbye as he and the Furious Five departed, carrying with him unresolved feelings and troubling thoughts about his identity and purpose. Throughout the journey, Po wrestled with these inner conflicts, grappling with his responsibilities as the Dragon Warrior and the emotions stirred by his conversation with Mr. Ping. In their arduous journey across varied terrain, Po and the Furious Five experienced a series of challenges and surreal moments. Initially enthusiastic, Po cheered as they traversed snowy mountains, only to quickly exhaust himself and lag behind his friends. During a clumsy descent, he tumbled into a massive snowball, struggling to free himself. Later, Po faced what seemed like a steep vertical climb, only to realize with Tigress's help that it was actually a horizontal surface, highlighting his disorientation. As they marched through a barren desert, Po displayed his skill with a bamboo staff, but his thoughts drifted to troubling dreams. One night, while sleeping on a river in a small boat, Po dreamt of a surreal encounter with his parents, who were replacing him with a radish. In the dream, he chased after them eagerly, only to be met with his father's annoyance at his mother revealing a large radish. The radish unexpectedly attacked Po with Kung Fu moves, overwhelming him until it transformed into a menacing glowing red eye, jolting Po awake in distress. On the deck of the boat, Po found himself consumed by frustration and confusion, muttering angrily about the word radish. In an outburst, he punched the mast, inadvertently causing water to drip from above. Po then attempted to mimic Tai Chi movements akin to Shifu's, but his efforts were repeatedly interrupted by more dripping water, further fueling his agitation. As the drops persisted, Po's frustration grew, leading him to punch the mast relentlessly until he was unexpectedly drenched by a large amount of water. Enraged, Po resorted to headbutting the mast in fury. Tigris noticed Po's absence and approached him, questioning his behavior. Po, embarrassed, claimed he was training, but Tigris dismissed the notion that the mast was a worthy opponent. Despite Po's initial resistance, Tigris engaged him in a training session, during which Po attempted to punch her paw with all his might, only to end up in pain, clutching his injured fist. Tigris apologized for pushing him too far, but persisted in their training. Afterward, they paused to converse. Tigris asked Po why he was with them on this mission. Po confided in her about discovering that Mr. Ping was not his biological father, a revelation that did not surprise her. Sensing Po's discomfort, Tigris inquired if it bothered him, but Po evaded the question, unwilling to acknowledge the emotional impact of not knowing his true parentage. Just as Po began to open up further, their conversation was abruptly interrupted as the rest of the group joined them, signaling their arrival at the destination. Upon arriving in Gangmen City, they discovered that the wolves who had raided the musician's village now controlled the city, terrorizing its citizens. Po recognized Boss Wolf, the very wolf who had battled him during the attack. Po and the five tried to infiltrate the city discreetly, evading the wolves. However, Po struggled to keep pace with the others and attempted various comical disguises. His attempts included using a plant for camouflage, tripping over plant pots, and even headbutting a wolf while disguised as a woman. Despite these mishaps, Po persisted in his effort to sneak into the city. Po managed to clumsily get inside a dragon costume. He began searching for his friends, eventually finding them also inside the costume, where Po accidentally smacked Monkey. Crane questioned Po about his stealth abilities, to which Po admitted, "It's not one of my stronger modes." Together, Po and the five snuck into the city disguised as a giant dragon. As they strolled the streets, they witnessed a wolf threatening a sheep citizen, prompting Po to swiftly intervene and defeat the wolf. The grateful citizen informed them that Masters Storming Ox and Croc were imprisoned in Gangmen Jail. Suddenly, the wolves spotted them and gave chase. Po and the five fought off multiple wolves, but eventually found themselves cornered. To escape, they sneaked out of the dragon costume and hid in nearby barrels. They located the jail and found Masters Storming Ox and Croc inside. Po assigned Monkey as the lookout, much to Crane's displeasure. Po and Tigris searched for the Masters and found them in their cell. They expressed enthusiasm at finally meeting them, but Ox and Croc refused to leave, fearing Shen would use the weapon on the city if they did. Tigris forcefully opened the cell door, but the Masters still hesitated. Po rushed to confront Lord Shen, only to realize the Masters hadn't followed. Po praised Tigris' skill, but argued with Ox and Croc, urging them to join the fight against Shen. Ox lamented that Kung Fu is dead, which deeply unsettled Po as it challenged his identity. Despite their reluctance, Po remained determined not to give up on the mission. They're compelled to depart without the Masters, but just before they can do so, Boss Wolf discovers them and flees, prompting Po and the five to pursue. Po spots a nearby rickshaw cart and gives chase with it, as Boss Wolf has also leapt into a rickshaw cart himself. Boss Wolf's cart sharply turns into an adjacent valley, and Po, moving too swiftly, initially overshoots, but with Viper's assistance, he manages to swing around and enter the valley. The wolf leader then redirects an antelope driver into Po's path, forcing him to swerve narrowly around the driver. Boss Wolf causes chaos by knocking over citizens and crates, with Po barely evading the crates, while the five lag behind in their effort to assist the citizens. Po is then thrown a pram filled with baby bunnies by the wolf. After scrambling to keep the bunnies safe, he swings under the cart and tosses the bunnies into the air, where Crane catches them. Po crashes into a building, shattering the cart, and falls back onto the street, where Tigris and Mantis shove him aside. Boss Wolf barely has time to turn and shout in surprise before Po collides with him. They spar on the still-moving cart, passing onlookers as they race down the street. Eventually, Po catches up to the wolf, but their chase leads them to Shen's palace, where Shen's wolves surround them. Po surrenders, and he and the five are handcuffed, though he reassures his friend that he has a plan. Po places Mantis in a small cage. Po found himself being carried by one of the gorillas, eventually reaching Shen's throne room. As Shen attempted to present himself, the soothsayer approached and observed Po. Po and the Furious Five were brought before Shen, who chuckled at seeing Po in chains. Po clumsily destroyed a small model of the cannon, only to confront the actual cannon before him. Shen mocked Po for his lack of foresight despite having a lifetime to plot his revenge. Sensing there was something Shen and the soothsayer knew that he didn't, Po grew uneasy, but Shen provided no answers. Instead, Shen menacingly aimed a knife at Po, silencing him momentarily. After a tense exchange, they all laughed, and Shen commanded Boss Wolf to fire the cannon at Po and the five. As Boss Wolf attempted to light the fuse, Mantis swiftly intervened, extinguishing the fuse and attacking Boss Wolf. It soon became clear that this was all part of Poe's plan, and he erupted into laughter. After the distraction allowed the five to break free from their bonds, they swiftly destroyed the weapon while Poe pursued Shen. Poe leapt at Shen with a battle cry, causing him to stagger backward and fall to the floor. However, before Poe could capture him, Shen's feather pattern triggered another vision for Poe. In this moment, Poe realized Shen had been present the last time he saw his parents, and Shen confirmed it. Exploiting Poe's momentary hesitation, Shen escaped once again, leaving Poe confused and troubled. Gathering on the balcony, Poe and the five regrouped. Tigress sternly reminded Poe to focus, despite his emotional turmoil. Meanwhile, Shen, having secretly prepared additional cannons, brought down the tower with Poe and the five still inside. The tower collapsed around them as cannonballs exploded upon impact with the top of the structure. Crane was injured in the chaos, and when Poe tried to assist him, he nearly fell into a hole in the tower but was saved by Viper and Mantis. Using the lantern ropes, they descended to a lower level of the tower and eventually reached the ground, with Poe landing on Monkey. Tigress urged Poe to maintain his focus as they realized they were trapped. They discovered a higher level of the tower and ascended it as it continued to collapse. Poe was aided by Tigress as they navigated the precarious structure. Eventually, they jumped off the tower with difficulty but managed to escape and return to Gongmen Jail. Poe and the five stealthily navigated through the streets, waiting for an opportune moment when two wolves departed. They swiftly made their way to the jail, with Poe stumbling as he entered. The jail was deserted except for Masters Ox and Croc still confined to their cell. Master Ox questioned their efforts against Shen, and all eyes turned to Poe. The five, especially Tigress, confronted Poe about letting Shen escape. Poe attempted to justify his actions by claiming he allowed Shen to leave to gather more information about his plans, but the five were unconvinced. Tigress stepped forward, causing Poe to stumble and sit back on the ground, pressing him to tell the truth. Struggling to articulate his feelings in front of them, Poe hesitated, but Tigress insisted that Poe remain in Gongmen Jail with Ox and Croc. As Tigress began to walk away, Poe hurried after her, determined to disobey her orders. He attempted to pass her, but she swiftly grabbed his arm and spun him around, ready to confront him. Despite his efforts, Poe was consistently outmaneuvered and overpowered by Tigress, sustaining injuries in the process until Viper intervened and urged him to relent. Defeated and on the ground, Poe reiterated his resolve to confront Shen, prompting Tigress to press him for the truth. After a moment of hesitation, Poe finally confessed his deep desire to uncover his origins and learn what Shen knew about his past. He insisted that it was something he needed to do. Moved by his sincerity, Tigress unexpectedly embraced him, acknowledging his emotional turmoil. Despite this, she insisted that Poe remain behind. Reluctantly accepting Tigress's decision, Poe watched as the five departed to confront Shen. Unbeknownst to the five, Poe stealthily infiltrated the cannon foundry, thwarting their plans to destroy the building. Using a pole vaulting technique, Poe subdued two wolves guarding the entrance and slipped into the firework factory. Evading Boss Wolf and the unconscious wolves, Poe navigated through the factory, ascending onto a high walkway overlooking a metal vat. He climbed a ladder and rolled across another walkway in search of Shen. Meanwhile, the five became aware of Poe's presence inside the factory and struggled against Shen's minions to reach him. Poe finally confronted Shen, demanding answers about his past amidst taunts from the cunning peacock. After Shen cut a chain and sent a bucket swinging into Poe, leaving him dangling precariously, Poe struggled to regain his footing and faced Shen's challenge to learn the truth at the risk of his life. They engaged in combat, with Poe narrowly avoiding being pushed into the vat by a conveyor belt amid the intense heat of the factory. Despite nearly perishing in the molten metal, Poe persisted in chasing Shen until he finally cornered him. In a shocking revelation, Shen claimed to have witnessed Poe's parents abandoning him, exploiting Poe's emotional vulnerability. Shen then blasted Poe with a cannon, hurling him out of the factory and into a river, where he drifted unconscious and severely injured. The river eventually carried Poe to an abandoned village, where he was found and rescued by the soothsayer. Upon awakening in a small house surrounded by ruins, Poe noticed the soothsayer tending to him. He attempted to sneak away but was persuaded by her to take medicine, assuring him she could have him left to die if he wished. Poe questioned why she saved him, and she cryptically replied, "So you can fulfill your destiny." As he explored the surroundings, haunting voices from his past echoed into his mind, stirring up deep-seated emotions and questions about his origins. The soothsayer observed that Poe might still recall his past, but he dismissed it as just a nightmare. She challenged him, asking nightmare or memory. Poe looked into a puddle outside the ruins and saw his infant self smiling back. He began recalling moments from his childhood in a village full of pandas, seeing his parents waving sweetly as baby Poe played with a tiny panda doll on the stairs of their house. The soothsayer then recounted her prophecy that a warrior of black and white would defeat Shen, linking it to Poe's present and past. As Poe explored the village, more memories flooded back. Recognizing Poe's resistance to confronting his repressed memories, the soothsayer advised him to stop resisting and allow the memories to flow. Eventually, Poe surrendered to the process, and he finally remembered the truth of what had happened in his past. In his vivid recollection, Poe witnessed his parents leading a peaceful life in the village when he was just a baby, until Shen and his wolves suddenly attacked. Amidst the chaos of the attack, baby Poe sat outside of his hut, terrified and clutching his beloved doll. Amidst the flames, Shen ordered Boss Wolf to eliminate Poe. The soothsayer encourages Poe to embrace his emotions and allow them to flow freely. Using raindrops, Poe manages to perform the same water droplet technique that Shifu had demonstrated, using them to guide his memories. He sees that his parents did not abandon him as Shen claimed, but instead risked their lives to save him. Poe witnesses his mother fleeing through a forest, pursued by Boss Wolf. She skillfully navigates down a steep snow embankment, evading them. Eventually, she hides baby Poe in a crate of radishes. However, as she begins to leave, baby Poe starts crying, prompting her to comfort him and take his tiny paw in hers. Poe's mother lovingly looks at him before diverting Shen and the wolves away from Poe, leading them off alone. The vision concludes, and Poe gently places the raindrop on a small plant. Poe slowly sinks into a seated position, overwhelmed by the revelations about his past. The soothsayer approaches as he struggles to hold back tears. The weight of Poe's tragic history bears down on him, but the soothsayer gently reminds Poe that his present actions define him more than his past. Your story may not have started happily, but that doesn't define who you are. It's the rest of your story, the choices you make. Poe's expression gradually shifts as a new wave of memories floods his mind. Reflecting on his achievements, his friends, and his family, Poe finally grasps his true identity and finds inner peace. Filled with newfound determination, Poe declares that he needs a hat and prepares to rescue the five. Poe returned to Gongmen City just as Shen and his fleet were preparing to embark on their conquest of China. Nervously perched on a rooftop, Poe looked down at the captured Furious Five and Shen's formidable army. He bravely declared his presence to Shen, though his voice barely carried. A panda stands between you and your destiny. Using his agility and wit, Poe created a distraction to set his plan in motion, freeing the Furious Five. He darted across rooftops, drawing fire from the wolves' cannons and skillfully evading their shots. Poe's relentless movement and daring maneuvers allowed him to reach the captured five, and together they fought their way through Shen's forces toward their ultimate goal, confronting Shen himself. Poe and the Furious Five plunged into the advancing wolves, igniting a fierce battle. Amidst the chaos, Poe seized a wolf and slammed him to the ground, rendering him unconscious. As the fight raged on, Storming Ox, Croc, and Shifu, spurred by Shen's earlier attack on Poe, reluctantly joined the fray. Together with the Furious Five, they pressed forward toward Shen. Master Shifu strategized quickly, directing them to use boats to block the harbor gate. With concerted effort, they launched the boats forward, effectively sealing off the harbor entrance. Poe, the Furious Five, Shifu, and the two masters leapt from the barricade just as an explosion erupted. Undeterred, they initiated their final assault on Shen's army. In a tense moment, Poe and Shen locked eyes. Shen retaliated by firing a cannon directly at the warriors, blasting them into the harbor with tremendous force. Before the cannon fired, Tigress shoved Poe aside, saving his life but causing the blockade at the harbor gate to crumble. Poe surfaced, clutching a piece of driftwood, and watched in dismay as Shen's armada sailed through the now open gate, lining up ominously in the harbor. Spotting Tigress on another piece of driftwood, they exchanged a glance before Poe turned his attention to Shen, who smirked triumphantly from his ship. With determination, Poe swam toward the center of the harbor, facing Shen's entire fleet alone. As the other masters were weakened and exhausted, Poe prepared to confront Shen single-handedly. Closing his eyes, Poe began to perform Tai Chi movements. He paused in a state reminiscent of catching a water drop, and then opened his eyes and focused. With serene concentration, Poe closed his eyes again just as a cannonball hurtled towards him, which he envisioned briefly as a raindrop. Echoes of inner peace resonated in his mind as Poe reached out and caught the cannonball, redirecting its trajectory away from him. Mastering the water droplet technique, Poe deftly redirected subsequent cannonballs, using them to dismantle Shen's fleet and obliterate his main ship. In a moment of intense concentration and power, Poe momentarily transformed into a fiery yin-yang symbol, reminiscent of the soothsayer's vision, before delivering the decisive blow to Shen's forces. Poe found Shen amidst the wreckage and implored him to let go of his past grievances for his own peace. Shen, however, countered that wounds only heal, not scars. Poe persisted, urging Shen to change and choose a better path. Enraged, Shen attacked Poe ferociously, and during the battle he managed to slice off some of Poe's facial fur. Shen hurled his last knives at Poe, who shielded himself with a piece of driftwood, but then Shen continued his assault with his lance. In a twist of fate, Shen accidentally dislodged the destroyed cannon, which fell on him and exploded, sealing his fate. Po surfaced a distance away from the wrecked ship, clinging to a piece of debris. He looked back at the sinking vessel, realizing that Shen had perished. As Po reached the dock, Tigress silently offered her paw, and Po gratefully accepted, allowing her to pull him ashore. They embraced, and soon after, the rest of the Furious Five joined in. Celebrating Po's survival and victory, Shifu approached, marveling at how Po had achieved inner peace at such a young age. Po credited Shifu as his teacher and tried to hug him, but Shifu disappeared, leaving Po chuckling. Reunited with his fellow masters on the dock, Po and the others watched a fireworks display illuminating the city, marking the end of their arduous journey and celebrating their triumph over Shen's tyranny. Having found inner peace, Po returned to Mr. Pink's noodle shop, carrying crates of radishes. He embraced his adoptive father with newfound confidence, feeling at home and belonging. Mr. Ping hugged Po warmly, asking if he had saved China, to which Po proudly confirmed. Po assured Mr. Ping that he now understands where he came from and declared himself Mr. Ping's son. They shared a heartfelt hug, expressing their love for each other. Mr. Ping offered to cook for Po, but Po insisted on cooking together as a way of thanking his father for raising him. They playfully debated until Mr. Ping relented, agreeing that they would cook together. Laughing together, Po and Mr. Ping walked into the kitchen, ready to prepare a meal side by side. Secrets of the Masters. Po explores the Master's Council exhibit with Tigress and Mantis. Po, clumsy as ever, crashes through the ceiling and marvels at the exhibit, sharing the story of how Thundering Rhino, Storming Ox, and Croc came together. Later, Shifu arrives and sends Tigress and Mantis away, assigning Po the task of fixing the roof. However, in typical fashion, he slips and accidentally falls under the sarcophagus of Su Wu, where he gets stuck for what seems like quite a while. Secrets of the Scroll. Po discovers that Mr. Ping has given away his Furious 5 action figures. Initially concerned, Po sets out to retrieve them, but changes his mind when he sees a young rabbit playing happily with them. Po realizes that the action figures have found a new home where they're appreciated. When the Furious 5 offer to help him find the action figures, Po decides that he doesn't need them anymore. He wraps his arms around the 5, expressing that he has the real things right there with him. Together they return to the palace, suggesting that Po has found contentment with his friends and doesn't need the action figures to feel connected to them. Kung Fu Panda 3. Po is grappling with a new responsibility as a teacher of the Furious Five, which Shifu has entrusted to him. Initially excited about his role as the Dragon Warrior, Po is taken aback when Shifu announces that he'll be focusing on his own studies and leaving the training of the Furious Five to Po. On his first day in the new role, Po struggles and feels uncertain about whether he can live up to Shifu's expectations. Shifu, however, reassures Po that facing new challenges is essential for him to grow and reach his full potential as the Dragon Warrior. Despite Shifu's encouragement, Po starts to doubt himself and his abilities. Seeking solace and advice, Po returns to the noodle shop where he confides in Mr. Ping about his insecurities. However, Mr. Ping misunderstands Po's concerns, thinking that Po is excited about a new opportunity that could expand their business. Suddenly, a pig bursts into the scene, announcing that someone is breaking Po's record for dumpling eating. Intrigued, Po heads to the restaurant where he discovers that the challenger is another panda. The panda introduces himself as Li Shen and reveals that he's been searching for his son. Initially slow to realize the connection, both pandas finally recognize each other amidst the groans of the assembled crowd, warmly embracing. Mr. Ping, Po's adoptive father, feels jealous and attempts to dispute Li's claim of being Po's biological father, but the pandas pay him no heed. Li teaches Po the belly gong technique, and Po learns from him that Li discovered Po's survival through what he calls a message from the universe. Li also reveals the existence of a secret village of pandas. Po and Li enjoy some playful moments in the Jade Palace until they're discovered by Shifu and the Furious Five. Upon confirming Li's identity as Po's father, Shifu suggests that Li observe Po teaching a class. However, their plans are interrupted when a bell signals an attack on the valley by strange jade creatures known as zombies. Po and Monkey quickly nickname them as such. Po recognizes the zombies as the supposed deceased Master Badger twins and Porcupine. The battle escalates in the noodle shop where Po utilizes his dumplings of doom technique to subdue the zombies and protect his friends. An ominous voice emerges from the creatures, identifying himself as Kai and vowing to take their chi. The zombies then transform into jade statues and fly away, leaving Po and his companions bewildered by the unexpected turn of events. Returning to the Jade Palace, Shifu discovers an ancient scroll that unveils Kai's origins as a former comrade of Oogway's from 500 years ago. Po becomes deeply intrigued by the scroll's account, which reveals that pandas were once masters of Qi, teaching Oogway the art. However, Kai misused Qi to steal it from others, leading to his banishment to the spirit realm. The scroll concludes that only a true master of Qi can defeat Kai, a qualification Po assumes Shifu meets. However, Shifu admits that he only has a limited grasp of Qi himself. Li Shan offers to teach Po about Chi, but insists that Po must accompany him to the secret panda village to rediscover the true essence of being a panda. Convinced that his father's arrival is a sign from the universe, Po agrees to go with him. Accompanied by Mr. Ping, Po journeys to the panda village where he meets his cousins Dim and Sum, and the ribbon dancer Mei Mei. He learns more about his mother and begins to reconnect with his panda roots. However, their peace is shattered when Tigress arrives with the news that Kai has defeated and turned the other masters into zombies. Po confronts a second shock when he discovers that his father had been lying about knowing how to control Chi, believing he was protecting Po from Kai's wrath. Angered and determined, Po decides to confront Kai head-on, but Tigress warns him that Kai cannot be defeated in a direct confrontation. Po suggests using the Wuxi finger hold, but Tigress points out that Kai can see through the eyes of his zombies, making a sneak attack impossible. At this critical moment, Li, Mr. Ping, and the pandas arrive, pledging to stand with Po and learn Kung Fu to fight against Kai. Initially hesitant, Po realizes he can help the pandas become their own kind of Kung Fu warriors, rather than just mere replicas of himself. Inspired by Shifu's teachings about guiding others to reach their own potential, Po begins training the pandas in their unique ways. Soon, Po's army of pandas faces off against Kai's force of zombies, preparing for an epic battle to protect their home and to defeat Kai once and for all. Po's plan initially seemed to be successful, but he soon discovered the harsh reality. The Wuxi fingerhold had no effect on spirit warriors like Kai. With a swift motion, Kai summoned back the zombies and used his supernatural strength to hurl Po onto a frozen lake. The charging bull then swiftly closed in on the stumbling dragon warrior, hoisting him high into the air before executing a backflip kick. Dazed and defeated, Po crashed through the entrance of the panda village, urging everyone to flee. Despite his injuries, Po devised an alternative strategy. He attempted to use the Wuxi fingerhold on himself while gripping Kai, aiming to send them both to the spirit realm. Enraged, Kai retaliated fiercely, narrowly avoiding Po's attempts with his jade swords. With a swift move, the spirit warrior grabbed a large rock, trapping Po and delivering a chi-enhanced punch through it, attempting to drain Po's chi as he had done with the other masters. Unexpectedly, Po received aid from the villagers and Tigress, who unlocked the power of their chi, helping Po to harness his own. Empowered by this newfound strength, Po manifested his chi as a dragon, realizing that his identity is the son of a panda and a goose, both student and teacher, making him the true dragon warrior. Po engaged Kai once more, shattering his jade swords and mocking his threats to take Po's chi for another 500 years. In a bold move, Po willingly offered his chi to Kai, overwhelming the spirit warrior with its immense power. This act destroyed Kai, freeing the masters he had captured, including the legendary Oogway. After being knocked out in battle, Po was awakened by Oogway, who expressed satisfaction with Po's growth. Oogway revealed that he orchestrated the events leading to Li Shan's arrival through Universe Mail. He explained that he saw the future of Kung Fu in Po and recognized him as the perfect embodiment of yin-yang, linking him to the pandas who had once taught Oogway Chi. Oogway then presented Po with a yin-yang staff. Initially hesitant, Po accepted after Oogway hinted that he already possessed a bigger one. Po engaged in friendly fencing with his new staff, but became distressed when Oogway seemed to vanish in a flurry of petals. Eventually realizing that Oogway was already at home and could decide to stay or go as he pleased, Po used his chi to return to the physical realm. Triumphant, Po was warmly embraced by his fathers and fellow masters. Shifu, expressing pride in Po's growth, was momentarily annoyed by Po's new staff, a gift from Oogway. Po then asked if he could teach Shifu. Returning to the Valley of Peace with his extended family, Po continued practicing chi alongside them. Proudly reflecting on his journey, Po gazed upon his legacy in the place where it all began. The Paws of Destiny. In Enter the Dragon Master, the panda youngsters Nuhai, Bao, Jing, and Fen Tong argue over who gets to play Po in their pretend game. Po himself arrives at the village at the request of his father Li to bless a sacred peach statue, only to find chaos caused by the children. After the children receive the chi of the 4 constellations, they ask Po to train them, initially meeting with his refusal. However, Oogway summons Po to the spirit realm and reveals that it is his destiny to mentor the new constellations. Witnessing their battle prowess against Jade Tusk and her warriors, Po eagerly accepts his unexpected new role. In Blue Dragon Plays with Fire, Po wakes the panda children and narrowly avoids their mischievous antics. He then leads them to a dilapidated abandoned dojo atop Panda Village, much to their disappointment. Po acknowledges the dojo's condition, but encourages them to see beyond its appearance. He explains the significance of hero chi, typically bestowed upon one master per generation, and demonstrates his mastery by creating a golden dragon-themed yin and yang symbol in the air, impressing the children. Po then educates them about the original 4 constellations: White Tiger, Blue Dragon, Black Tortoise, and Red Phoenix. The panda children begin arguing about their respective hero chi, prompting Po to explain that their chi powers cannot be traded amongst themselves. Sometime later, Nuhai and the other panda children lead Po to a nearly cleaned and renovated dojo. Nuhai eagerly shows Po all the cool training equipment they've added, but Po advises her to chill and focus, emphasizing the importance of not getting ahead of herself. Nuhai takes a deep breath, which helps her regain focus, though her excitement for Kung Fu remains palpable. Po then begins teaching them basic Kung Fu techniques. The panda children show moderate progress, not exceptional, but not lacking effort either. Po congratulates them on their first week of training and informs them that he'll research the 4 constellations while they're at school. Po heads to Grandma Panda's library in search of scrolls about the 4 constellations. Grandma Panda warns him not to eat, make a mess, or do anything strange while she's away. Despite rolling his eyes, Po accidentally makes a mess while searching. Frustrated and on the verge of giving up, Po finally discovers a scroll detailing the humble origins of the 4 constellations. He gets kicked out for the mess he made. Later, Po encounters Ping, the goose messenger, who is surprised to see him back from Wuran village, which is under attack by bandits. Po realizes he's been tricked. His students had promised to deliver the message. Po heads out immediately to find them. Upon reaching the village, Po defeats the remaining yak bandits and expresses disappointment in the panda children's impulsive actions. Nuhai takes full responsibility and confesses it was her idea. Po reassures her, mentioning that he would have been much angrier if her powers weren't so awesome. He praises her for taking responsibility for her mistakes, noting it as a true leadership quality. Curious, Po asks how she managed to control her chi, and Nuhai explains simply, "I just stopped and took a breath." Kung Fu Panda 4. One evening atop a mountain, Tai Lung mysteriously reappears. Later on, Po thwarts an evil stingray's plans before joining his fathers in opening their new restaurant. During this time, Shifu summons Po to the Jade Palace and informs him that he must evolve into the spiritual leader of the Valley of Peace, meaning he can no longer remain as the Dragon Warrior, much to Po's disappointment. The following day, Po struggles to select suitable candidates, frustrating Shifu. While grappling with this task, he encounters a thief named Zhen attempting to steal ancient kung fu weapons. Po apprehends her and sends her to prison, but soon learns of Tai Lung's supposed return. Zhen provides a crucial clue. Tai Lung hasn't returned, but is being impersonated by the chameleon. She urges Po to team up to stop this imposter. Reluctant at first, but driven by the desire for one last adventure as Dragon Warrior, Po heads to Juniper City with Zhen. Meanwhile, Ping and Li, fearing for Po's safety, discreetly follow behind. In Juniper City, Po and Zhen are apprehended when Po discovers Zhen is a wanted criminal. They manage to escape to the Den of Thieves where Zhen reunites with Han, who reluctantly allows them temporary refuge but insists they leave by the next day. Po and Zhen then proceed to confront the chameleon at her lair with the intention of stopping her. However, Po is betrayed when Zhen reveals she was working for the chameleon. He narrowly escapes but loses the Staff of Wisdom in the process. When Po demands the staff back, he discovers that it was the chameleon disguised as Zhen all along, who then sends him plummeting off a cliff. Using the Staff of Wisdom, the chameleon opens a spiritual doorway to summon every martial arts master, including Tai Lung, Lord Shen, and Kai, to steal their kung fu. Realizing the grave mistake she's made, Zhen decides to rectify her actions by running away from the chameleon for good. Meanwhile, Po confides in his fathers about his fear of change. Ping shares his own experience of fearing change, but emphasizes that change allowed him to become a father. Inspired by his father's words, Po gains the courage to confront the chameleon once and for all. Along the way, Po unexpectedly encounters Zhen, who tries to dissuade him from risking his life. This leads to a heartfelt duel between them. Despite Zhen's tearful plea, Po remains steadfast in his determination to stop the chameleon. Zhen persuades the Den of Thieves to assist her in rescuing Po. Meanwhile, Tai Lung discovers that Po lost the Staff of Wisdom, further diminishing his faith in Po. Po attempts to confront the chameleon to retrieve the staff. Just as the chameleon prepares to deliver the final blow, Zhen steps in. The chameleon transforms into a hybrid of multiple creatures, leading to a battle among the 3 of them around the room. Zhen falls amidst the rubble, and the chameleon morphs into Po, who is then confronted by the real Po. However, the chameleon traps Po in a cage. Trusting Zhen, Po gives her the Staff of Wisdom, which she uses to restore the kung fu to all the masters from whom the chameleon had stolen it. The chameleon, refusing to accept defeat, attempts to kill Po again, but is swiftly knocked down. Realizing his mistake about Po, Tai Lung finally respects and acknowledges him as the Dragon Warrior. Po then opens a spiritual doorway, sending all the masters back to the spirit realm, with Tai Lung taking the chameleon with him. Back at the Valley of Peace, Zhen prepares to return to prison, but Po shocks both Shifu and her by choosing her as the new Dragon Warrior. Although she feels unworthy of the title, Po offers her some advice. In a mid-credits scene, Po, along with the Furious 5, Tigress, Monkey, Mantis, Viper, and Crane, helps Shen train to become the next Dragon Warrior. And that, my friends, is the life of Po. Hope you enjoyed it. What's your favorite Kung Fu Panda movie? How about your favorite moment in the whole series? Which one of the Furious 5 speaks to you best? Make sure you let me know down in the comments, and also subscribe for more like this. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, Frederator loves you.